holding on to their land after resisting forcible transfer. Palestinians are returning to northern Gaza during the ceasefire. Both Israel and the US wanted to remove them from the Strip. So, has another Nakba been averted? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Imran Khan. Tens of thousands of Palestinians are streaming back to their land in northern Gaza. A right of return included in the ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel. Multiple attempts to remove the population have failed. Many Palestinians say they've avoided another Nakba or catastrophe and defeated Israel's forced displacement policy. But the land they're returning to is unrecognisable. The United Nations estimates Israeli attacks have damaged or levelled 92% of houses and residential buildings. Electricity, water and sanitation networks are non-existent, and the health system has been decimated. Is Gaza uninhabitable, or can it be rebuilt under the interim authority that next governs the Strip? And does the ceasefire allow for this complex and lengthy task? We'll put these questions to our guests, but first, Imogen Kimber reports.
Palestinians are returning to their land as a ceasefire takes hold in Gaza. 2 years of Israeli bombardment deliberately drove most of the population of 2.3 million from their homes and killed at least 67,160 people.
It is an indescribable feeling. We are very, very happy that the war has stopped and the suffering has ended.
During the war, Israeli ministers spoke openly of creating a concentration zone in the south of the Strip and even forcibly transferring Palestinians out of Gaza. At one stage, US President Donald Trump suggested turning the Strip into a Riviera of the Middle East, while Benjamin Netanyahu announced Israel would reoccupy the territory. Palestinians believe they have avoided another Nakba, or catastrophe, the mass expulsion of 750,000 Palestinians when Israel was created in 1948. Defying, with their determination and resilience, Israel's forced removals. However, the land they're returning to is almost unrecognisable.
I can't say where the house is or where the places we used to live are. Even the streets, I have to ask which street I'm on.
The United Nations estimates 92% of houses have been damaged or destroyed, along with public services and infrastructure.
We are in a state of shock. There's no water, nowhere for people to live. The homes are completely destroyed. All areas are destroyed. Our neighborhood Zaytun is destroyed. Shujaya and the north are destroyed. There's nothing suitable for us to live in.
The US president's peace plan does not include a role for Hamas in Gaza's future. Instead, it proposes a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee oversee governance. That administration's first task will be to rebuild Gaza from the rubble. Some estimates suggest it could take around 15 years to do so. The Israeli Prime Minister says there will never be a Palestinian state. However, Palestinian resolve to create one remains undiminished. Imogen Kimber, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Before we get to our panel of guests, let's speak to our correspondent Hind Khudri in central Gaza. She's been following Palestinians as they return to their land in the north. Firstly, Hind, it's amazing to see you without a helmet and a flak jacket. And that is actually symbolic because I don't want to speak to you as a journalist. I want to speak to you as a Palestinian. This has been historic in the last few days. Just talk me through what you're feeling right now.
Imran, I don't know from where to start, but I have never been numb and not having feelings for long. There have been a lot. 2 years of this genocide, it has been a lot. And as a Palestinian, forget the fact that I have been a journalist reporting everything, but I have been also a Palestinian who lost my house, who was away from my family, lost a lot of family members, lost a lot of friends, and I don't know from where to start. Yes, the war ended. It's ceasefire. There's no drones. There's no explosions. But what's next? For example, I don't have a place to return to. There's no house. My house has been flattened to the ground. I don't know when is the next time I'm going to see my mother. I have been not seeing her for the past 2 years. She called me this morning and she was crying. She was like, when will I ever hug you? And this has been the same exact call with my brothers. We do not know when families are going to reunite. The numbness of this feeling, of this trauma, of everything we went through is very, very harsh. We know we're keeping it inside, but I'm very afraid, Imran, of the day that I'm going to start expressing how I feel, about how I felt every time I felt lonely, every time I was scared, every time I was frightened, every time I felt homeless. And it's not only me, it's everyone across the Gaza Strip. It's everyone who lived this every single day. We know, everyone knows it's ceasefire, but we still don't believe this is going to make it till the end. We're still a little bit afraid that we're going to hear an explosion in any minute. We don't believe it's peaceful, but now the war ended, but what I'm looking at right now are trucks carrying Palestinians with their furniture, not knowing where to go. People returned back to their houses and they found them completely flattened, where there's no infrastructure, there's no buildings.
I'm going to stop you there because a lot of what you've said is incredibly powerful, particularly when you were talking about the fact that you haven't processed this. You will at some point, I assure you, but right now you're in a different headspace. Now, I want to talk to you about that particular headspace because at some point during the last 2 years, did you want to give up and did you want to leave Gaza?
It's not that I wanted to give up. I never felt that I wanted to give up because what I was doing and seeing the people is what gave me strength every single day. A new story. Someone needs me to tell the story of what's going on. And I never felt that I wanted to leave. Why? Because living this during this very hard time, seeing your city, your neighborhood being destroyed, you get more connected to your land. You get more connected to your neighborhood. You start realizing and feeling how powerful your connection to your land is. Yes, if I travel now, for example, or if I left, what would I be doing? Watching Gaza through the TV? This is not something I want, and this is not something I want to experience. And this is what I have been telling to everyone. I do not want to be seeing Gaza through screens. I want to see it with my own eyes. And this is what keeping me doing this every single day, and this is why I'm standing here right now, Imran. Gaza is not a city. Gaza is our beloved city for every single Palestinian, despite all the destruction. We have been very connected, and I don't know if someone understands the connection between Gaza and its citizens. It's a love-hate relationship, but you can't ever leave and you can't ever give up on Gaza. And I'm so happy and proud of myself that I stood, I stayed, I chose Gaza and made it till the end.
Well, that, Hind, is exactly what we're going to be talking to our guests about, that connection to the land. Now let's bring in our guests. Joining us from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank is Ines Abdel Razek, co-director of the Palestine Institute for Public Diplomacy. In Exeter in the UK is Ilan Pappe, chairman of the Nakba Memorial Foundation, and in London, Ghada Karmi, a Palestinian academic and the author of Return, a Palestinian memoir. Welcome to the programme. I want to start in London first with Ghada. Ghada, in many ways, you are the embodiment of the Nakba. You are displaced. You lived through it. When you see these scenes in Gaza right now, people returning to somewhere that has been completely destroyed, what does that trigger in you?
Well, first of all, the sight of these poor people trekking all the way up north to looking for their homes is extremely poignant. And it is, of course, evocative of the lines of Palestinians in 1948 leaving Palestine because they had been expelled, forced out, or fled in fear. Now, that parallel strikes me very powerfully. I cannot say that I myself was among the lines of walkers in 1948. I was a child, and we were lucky enough to be able to get a taxi taking us out of Jerusalem. But it is very striking that Palestinians have been hounded from their homeland ever since 1948. And today we're witnessing this atrocious situation in Gaza. It makes me sad. It makes me extremely angry. I mean, what can I tell you? I've been angry since 1948.
Well, we're going to get a lot of that anger out today, I hope, because I feel that you have a lot of things to say. But I'm going to come to Ines, Abdel, Razek. She's in Ramallah for us. Ines, everybody talks about the resilience of the Palestinians. Quite frankly, it's almost annoying that they talk about the resilience because it dismisses what Israel has done since 1948, summed up there by Ghada Karmi, that somehow they are resilient, they're resisting all of this. This is actually happening to them. When you're seeing these images in Gaza, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that indeed, I think we should not romanticize the suffering, but I very much, subscribe to what Ghada was saying, that there's been 100 years of colonization, colonial attempts at expelling the Palestinians, exterminating the Palestinians from their land, from our land, but we are still here. In this very moment, we shouldn't romanticize the very suffering that is happening. I think this is very real. Israel's brutality and violence has been horrendous. They have destroyed 90% of Gaza. I think Hind said it, right? Like, people don't know how to feel yet. They cannot find space to grieve, to find space to breathe. But I think the matter is that, yes, all of these thousands of people returning, they are there. They're ready to rebuild. They're ready to teach their children how to cultivate the land, how to rebuild their homes. But again, this should not shield Israel's from its responsibility. And just like in 1948, I think we're in this very historic moment that I don't think we have enough space to look at and zoom out from, because we're in the middle of it. But I'm telling you that this has profoundly changed the Palestinian people, and our struggle is very much alive. We don't know yet how it has transformed our people, but I'm a third generation from Nakba survivors who were expelled, and I'm here today, and I can tell you this genocide is something that will ensure that Palestinians will continue resisting their oppression. And again, the ceasefire is definitely not the end, it's just the beginning. And Israel should be held accountable, and there should be a focus on making sure that the structural violence ends at this point.
Let me bring in Ilan Pappe here. I spent many years reporting from Israel. When I talked about the Nakba, the catastrophe, to Israelis, it barely even registered with them. It wasn't something that they ever talked about. You're the chairman of the Nakba Memorial Foundation. Why do you think that is? Why is it such a black hole for Israelis? They just seem to dismiss it.
Yes, I think, first of all, most Israelis don't know exactly what happened in the Nakba. And those who do know don't feel any compassion even at the level of humanity, let alone of understanding what does it say about themselves, the state, and the ideological movement they belong to. This is the result of two factors, I would say. One is the very nature of the Zionist movement and the State of Israel as a settler colonial project. All the settler colonial project totally dehumanizes the native, the indigenous population, and that allows then removal of the population, whether through genocide or ethnic cleansing or any other means. So this is part of what Israel is all about, to make sure that every generation subscribe to such a dehumanization. You need a very indoctrinated educational system, media, political discourses and so on. And anybody who analyzes the Israeli educational system, the media and so on, would see that the dehumanization is very much part of what Israelis are exposed to from cradle to the grave. So I'm not surprised that there is this dehumanization, this lack of compassion, no willingness actually to know exactly what happened either in 1948 or happened in Gaza in the last 2 years. And that kind of reality, of course, what really matters, I think, is how the international community confronts this reality. Because what the international community like to think that there is a chance for a change, that there is a large number of Israeli Jews who might think differently, and that would open the way for some sort of peace and reconciliation. But the fact is that there isn't such significant group, and there isn't such a counter view. And this is something that's the biggest challenge, not so much for the Palestinians, because they have been at the receiving end of the policies that such indoctrination informs in the end of the day. But the international community is as much ignorant and complicit as is the Israeli Jewish society.
Let me bring in Ghada here. Ghada, one of the things that the Israelis have criticized very vocally is a very simple thing. It's the symbol of a key. Now, the key symbolizes the homes that were lost or taken over by Jewish settlers in 1948, in 1967. It's symbolism like that is scary to Israelis. There is nothing about the Palestinians. Do you think that the Israelis have any sympathy with? Is that your understanding of any part of Palestinian history that the Israelis have any sympathy with?
There was there was a period round about, mainly I would say, coinciding with the Oslo Agreement, where one came across this phenomenon, quote, liberal Zionists. These were people who were supporters of Israel, of course, but who wanted to express their understanding and their sympathy for Palestinian aspirations to statehood themselves. So in a sense, there was that period in the 1990s, I'd say, when quite a few Palestinians really believed this stuff and wanted to see the best in the situation. But for me, having my family lost everything in 1948. We had to rebuild ourselves from scratch. And when when we look at Gaza today, and the question arises, how come these people are still there, they're still fighting, they still want to assert their existence? It's not strange to me, because that was exactly the feeling after 1948. Right. Palestinians were fully taken up with survival. Right. At the time, we didn't have the luxury of sitting there and reflecting on what had happened to us. We were engaged 100% in surviving and in living to fight another day. It was like that. So for me, I have never been taken in or fooled by Zionists.
It's a very important point you make. It's a very, very important point you make. I want to bring in Ines here. Ines, in many ways, we could describe you as being the post-Oslo generation. So you kind of understood, you saw that hope that Ghada was talking about during the sort of early 90s, but that has all gone away now. But there you are, in Ramallah, you're still in Palestine, you still believe in the idea of Palestine, but is that dream fading for your generation?
Yeah, I'm actually the Oslo generation, because when I was a kid, there was all of these peace-building programs that have fully failed. Well, because again, Israel has used brutal campaigns of violence and today genocide to push Palestinians to negotiate their very basic rights. But our rights are not negotiable. And so I think right now what's happening, the biggest insult and hypocrisy from the international community is that once again, they want to propose these processes based on rigged negotiations, where Israel, the Israeli regime, has full supremacy, full control, and pretends to make benevolent gestures. So the threat here is that these kind of processes, one, they consider Israeli, structural violence to be somehow normal and subject to compromise. Like the violence has not stopped. It's not because there is a ceasefire that, again, all of the crimes have stopped. They also, again, consider Israel as a good faith actor, as an actor that has an interest or is willing to take some steps towards Palestinian rights. But again, 100 years of trajectory of colonization in different forms has shown otherwise, and they continue to lie, and they continue to use these processes to create further control, further facts on the grounds that then become the new base for negotiation, that push the red lines from the international community. And so I think we should really not be fooled into these processes again. Like, what needs to happen is pressure, is Israel to be put in front of its responsibilities, because it won't stop its crimes until it's compelled to. And I think that's what's happening today, that I think is a big threat to the
Ines, the only way we're going to compel Israel to actually do something is international pressure. It was brought up by Ilan Pappe just earlier, but I want to unpack one more thing before we get to that pressure. It used to be an erasure of Palestinian identity, Ilan, that was the cornerstone of the way Israel dealt with the Palestinians. Pretend they didn't exist, pretend they were never there. Then, post-October the 7th, it became actually killing them en masse. And yet the international community did nothing. Obviously, that's a disappointment to you, but where do you think that kind of blindness comes from? And it can't be as simple as dehumanization.
Imran, European blindness is quite clear, because after all, Israel is a European project. And we have to remember the essence of the whole project was that Europe was unable to deal with its so-called Jewish question, and imposed a European Jewish state at the heart of the Arab world at the expense of the Palestinians. This basic historical fact has not changed. So Europe needs to understand its complicity both in the foundation of the state, but also in allowing it this exceptional immunity when it's clear that in the last 57 years, and one would say even in the last 78 years, it broke and violated every international law, used incremental genocide long before the 7th of October, incremental ethnic cleansing, oppression of all kinds, and so on. Europe, when we say Europe, of course, we mean governments and policymakers, are very much aware of what goes on. It's not that you need to inform them that the Palestinians are the victim of at least 78, if not more, years of a state and a project that robs them of their basic human and civil rights.
Sorry, Ilan, we are running out of time.
Why does Europe give them an exceptional immunity? And the answer is because, although geographically Palestine is in the Arab world, in the eyes of the European policymaker, Israel is part of Europe and therefore is treated very differently.
Ghada, I want to come to you. One of the only things, one of the only tools the Palestinians have left is the ability to remain on their land. As long as they're on their land, there is a Palestine to fight for. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the people of Gaza have demonstrated vividly the truth of that statement. They have largely stayed on their land, despite the horrific situation there is around them. But, listening to Ilan, I'm reminded of something which I think is important. For me, this is what is happening today is actually represents a continuum which began over a century ago. I mean, I'm going back to the days of the Balfour Declaration. There was an attitude at that time with Britain towards the Palestinians of complete neglect, not interested, couldn't care less about them. They were never mentioned in the decisions that were being taken by the Balfour Declaration over the future of their country by letting in the Zionists, etc. Now, that attitude at the time, which is described normally as colonialist or disregarded the natives, has not changed.
Right.
We need to understand that. It's the same today.
Okay.
That is why.
Sorry, Ghada, but we are running out of time, and I do want to come very quickly to Ines. Ines, that idea that the only real resistance the Palestinians have right now is staying on their land in the occupied West Bank, staying on their land in Gaza, and being a fact. But is that enough for you as somebody who is, still in the fight? Is that enough, or do you need more?
Well, I think, again, we should not underestimate Israel's brutal, violence and capacity sponsored by its closest allies. And so I think the suffering and the erasure that they can inflict should not be underestimated. However, even the Palestinians who were expelled throughout the decades, again, my family included, we're still here. The diaspora has shown, like the Palestinians who lived in exile, the new generations, have been the ones organizing and mobilizing millions in the streets and mobilizing campaigns to put that pressure on Israel. So the Palestinians, we're half in Palestine and half are outside. The Palestinians who are outside are as important and as part of the liberation struggle as the ones inside it. So I think this is a joint struggle that I think we need, again, to continue, because especially the Palestinians who are in the West, in the most complicit places, have a role to play in making sure that the reality is understood as one of settler colonialism, is understood as one where Israel will not change its course through rigged negotiations, but through being pressured.
I want to thank all our guests, Ines, Abdel, Razek, Ilan, Pappe and Ghada, Karmi. And I want to thank you as well for watching. You can see the programme again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. And you can also join the conversation on X. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Imran Khan, and the whole team here, bye for now.